Green Line issue. What's your reaction to the two MPs and the city councillor who issued a release yesterday and are talking about how upset they are about this?
I think it's entirely fair to ask a lot of questions. And as you know, we've been grappling with the Green Line for years now, asking and answering these questions. And I hope that we'll ask and answer a lot more questions this afternoon when we talk about it. I think that's entirely fair. I think anyone who's been following this debate would not be particularly surprised at where we've ended up. As I said, when Council passed the underground alignment for the downtown, you understand this is going to increase the price of the whole thing and limit what we can do within an existing budget. But it was the right thing to do. It's the right long-term decision. And so that's what Council has to grapple with. The thing that is sort of ironic and funny about this is that the city had been planning for a long time to build this whole network as a bus rapid transit network. It was actually the then federal government, Ms. Rempel and others, who phoned us up just before an election and said, we want to have a press release, we want to have a press conference this week to take it to LRT. How much is that going to cost? It was actually their own doing to push this thing forward. So we gave them a number based on a surface alignment on the Center Street Bridge and through downtown, and then proceeded to do tons of detailed engineering and detailed consultation to figure out what people really wanted. And this is where we've ended up today. So it's a bit funny for a member of that government who started all of this without any studies to criticize us for actually doing the studies.
So did you think some of the criticism was over the line?
Well, you know, politicians will do what politicians will do. Politicians have their own ambition. I am moved by evidence and data, and that is what I will continue to work from.
Does it have to be shorter?
Does it have to be shorter? I've kind of gone through the 5 stages of grief on this one. If Council really, really believes that the underground alignment through downtown and the Beltline is the right thing to do, build it right the first time, and we don't get more money, then the opening day scenario has to be a bit shorter. But I need to tell you this is really important, is that this is 10 years of construction, regardless. And so what's before us today is the opening day scenario. On opening day in 2026, that train will run from Crescent Heights to Shepherd. By 2026, pending funding, we're not going to stop building. We're going to keep building out the rest of it. But what I wanted was a scenario where we got as much of it running as quickly as possible so people could start riding it. And if we had flipped it and done the north end first, we know that's slower. So it would have been a couple more years before people could ride it. But my goal, and the goal of I hope whoever sits in the mayor's chair from here on in, will be to get the funding so that we never stop building, so that we continue construction until all 40 kilometers are built.
Where do you expect to get the funding from, since for phase 1 you've tapped the taxpayer, you've tapped the province hopefully, and you've tapped the feds? So where would you get money for phase 2, do you think?
There's 2 things here. Number one is if there's an interesting procurement process here that can leverage private capital. I'm not sure it's there, but we'll look for it. But remember that the federal government funding is over 11 years. So in fact, by the time it opens, we'll be into a new stage of federal funding. If the province matches the federal funding's time flow, then again, we'll be in a new stage of provincial funding even before it opens. And so we'll be able to continue that way. I think that's what people are forgetting. It's such a long construction period that programs and governments will change. I likely will not be in this chair in 2026. Is that a scoop? But you know, we will continue to work through and get this thing done.
What do you say to those people who are, even though it's been broadcast extensively, who are just disappointed that the route only goes a little ways in the north and not as far as they'd like in the south?
I'm disappointed. I'm hugely disappointed by it, and that's why I really pushed Council hard on the expensive parts, the downtown parts, to say, is good enough good enough? Do you want to go further? But at the same time, this is, let's remember, by far the largest investment in public transit in Alberta's history, by far. 4 times bigger than anything we've ever done before. And as a result, thousands and tens of thousands of people will benefit from this right away, and hundreds of thousands of people will benefit from it by the time we're done.
Given the tunnel and given the maintenance facility, for stage 1, is this it? Like you can't move further north or further south without more money, right?
Yes and no. So yes, that is the answer. However, this also bakes in a very large contingency for that tunnel. So if our bids come in lower, or if we don't need all of that contingency, then the good news about the way that the opening day scenario is done is the hardest parts are first. So if money is freed up, it's relatively easy to just keep building track on both the south and the north end. to the next station or to the station after that. That is not including the debt services. So we know that the city's portion is over 30 years and there's very significant interest payments. We know that the federal government's portion is likely to be over 11 years. We don't have a sense of how much the timing is, what the timing is on the province's portion, and that will radically change how much is needed for debt servicing.
Is there any sort of idea you have of how much that debt servicing would be? Some people say over $1 billion, some people say hundreds of millions.
It's really hard to say right now because we don't know the province's cash flows. Once we know the province's cash flows, which hopefully will be in place by the time council makes a budget decision in November, it'll be much easier to say. I mean, if the province and the feds were both to match the city's cash flows, and we already know the feds are not, they're doing it much faster. But if they were to match it, then you are looking at well over $1 billion of debt financing, which is just money that goes to the bank. And I'd rather have that money not go to the bank and go to building things.
Well, that's just a $4.6 billion decision. You don't do that every day, do you?
No, we don't. We do approve very large capital budgets in that range, but this, of course, is by far the largest public works project in the history of Alberta. It is also the largest investment in public transit in the history of Alberta. And, reflecting on it, we have managed to secure more public transit funding from the federal government than ever. And I'm confident we'll be able to find that amount from the provincial government as well. This is a really big deal. And while it is disappointing to some people who wanted to see even more, I am reminded that it is by far the largest investment in public transit in our history. And when we combine that with the 4 BRTs, bus rapid transit lines, that are also being built, it means tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Calgarians will have far more mobility options to get around the city much more conveniently on transit. So this is a very, very good day.
Is this the decision we expected to make today?
If you're really interested in the sausage making of this, I had suggested to administration that we just come with a motion to talk about it, to receive it for information, and let council make the actual decision a month from now. And enough council members said to me, you know what, we have the information we need, we have the questions answered, we'll get more questions answered in public, we see no point in delaying. Let's just go ahead and do the approval today. I was surprised that that was the intention that council wanted, but I follow council's will, so I helped them craft a recommendation, and that is what you saw passed very handily today.
So in terms of the people in the far southeast, like the Mackenzie towns and places further south, and the people who live north of 16th, how do you think that this is going to play over time? I mean, construction doesn't start, tomorrow or next year, but there are a lot of people that are unhappy. So how do you think this is going to play out over time?
The most important thing to remember is, we'll start with the people in the north. For the people in the north, because of the time of construction to get there, we would not have seen this line getting to Highland Park or getting to North Point really much before 2028 or 2029. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able, and future councils will be able to secure the funding to just keep building after 2026, so they will actually get the line roughly at the same time they were going to get it anyway. In the southeast, that is a different question, because we might have been able to go a little bit further than Shepherd, and we may still be able to do so. However, those who take transit in the far southeast will still see a much improved system. Rather than the 302 wending through, they'll do a quick connection at Shepherd Station and then make their way downtown. So they'll still see big improvements. And the other thing that I asked today is for a real examples of things we can do to improve the transit experience for the BRT riders today. So can we get queue jumping, better transit signalization, curb cuts where needed, just to make the bus go a little bit faster, to at least get people some improvements while we're doing this massive construction project.
Getting to Mackenzie Town, that's a $300 million touch. How do you think that's going to happen? Is it through savings in the construction process? Or?
Well, I hope so. I hope that we will be able to extend a little bit further past Shepherd. For now, what we've decided is to take it to Shepherd. And again, people in those neighborhoods, in Prestwick and Mackenzie, really all the way Auburn Bay, Mahogany, Seton, will be able to have a quicker trip with a quick connection at Shepherd Station rather than take the 302 all the way downtown.
The province still hasn't committed money. Do you think today's decision will help them with their decisions?
Yes, very much so. You know, a couple of the members of council were critical that the province hasn't yet committed. I'm not critical of them. They've been very clear on what their process has been, and they wanted us to complete our work and show them exactly what they were getting for what amount of money, and then ask them for the money. So we're going to do that right away. I'll sign a letter on that tomorrow probably, and get that to the province, and they will then continue their deliberations, and I will push hard for them to include their financing costs, I should say, and also to go on a compressed timeline similar to the timeline of the federal government, or even shorter.
And on the financing cost, we saw that I think it was $56 million number today per year for 30 years just for phase one. Does that concern you?
Oh, of course that concerns me. I mean, we've known that those numbers would be really high for a really long time. That is the worst possible case. And in fact, it will be less than that because the federal government is committed to the money over a shorter period of time. So if the province also commits over a shorter period of time, then that bite will be considerably less for the city. But getting this financing question right is really important, and I hope that the feds and the province will not assume that the city is picking up the whole financing cost, because then the city cost of the project zooms to about 50%, and that doesn't happen. So we need the feds and the province to play on that game as well.
Do you think the feds will?
I hope that the feds will, once we make the case to them for what we're talking about, and I'm very confident that the province will work with us on this as well.
So this vote literally means the city can send that letter to the premier or to the
I am
transportation
sure that
minister?
letter is sitting on someone's computer right now, getting edited with the correct words of our recommendation, and we'll get that out as soon as possible.